Yeah, I just wanted to say the podcast is great. Loving it. Season 2, amazing. Love the podcast. Keep it up.
The way it sounds, the way it looks, the way people were getting questioned, it sounded like maybe some of the frat brothers had something to do with it, you know what I mean?
His friend said nobody ever locked doors. People could come in and out.
Sure sounds like the UC Davis police were understaffed, but really just not in a place to take on a suspicious death investigation.
Suicide could be possible, but it sounds like it would be super rare and unusual for this to have happened.
I just find it mind-boggling that the campus police took such a deep role in the investigation of a suspicious death case.
He's someone who's never once had like a psychiatric issue.
I can't say for sure either way. It just left me with more questions.
Greetings and welcome to Love and Justice. I'm Kyle Olson. Since our very first episode, I've ended each show by saying, if you have a tip, question, or thought, reach out to us or call our hotline. Over the course of this season, many of you have done exactly that. Some of you have called or texted our hotline, while others have reached out through social media. You've shared thoughtful questions, challenged our thinking, pointed us toward new information, and offered your own perspectives on what happened in the case. In seeing all of these responses, one thing has become abundantly clear. There is no shortage of opinions. Some of you believe that Andrew's death was unquestionably a homicide. Others still think suicide remains a possibility. And many of you fall somewhere in the middle, trying to make sense of the evidence alongside us. So today, we are continuing to answer many of your questions and respond to some of the conversations happening around this case.
Hi, this is such a tough case, and my heart goes out to the family. It's been interesting to hear about the experts who say suicide could be possible, but it sounds like it would be super rare and unusual for this to have happened in Andrew's case, so that's something like kicking off these thoughts in his mind. Is there anything you've come across that might be something Andrew was struggling with?
This is a good question. I've talked on and off the podcast quite a bit about the roller coaster that I feel like we've all been on this entire season, where there are times where I feel like suicide is where I lean, and then there are times where I feel like that is the opposite of where I lean. One of the hardest things for me to wrap my head around on the suicide theory is, why would Andrew have done this? We've talked to obviously so many different experts that have brought their kind of thoughts and expertise as to what would have to be going on mentally for something like this to happen. Could it be schizophrenia? Could it be something of that nature? Could it be a poor reaction to strep throat drugs? Like, we've gone down these rabbit holes, and there are those potential, although I think very tiny, chances that it could be something that happened. But it is one of the biggest struggles in this case. We've talked previously about how both sexuality and Andrew's faith were kind of in conflict with each other. But a lot of people, including those closest to Andrew, including his high school girlfriend, don't believe that, and they don't think that contradiction was something that was making Andrew lose sleep at night.
Right. We've talked to multiple experts that say we'll never know. We'll never know what was going on in someone's mind if this was suicide.
Yeah. So this next one comes to us from Instagram, and this one says, you've mentioned a few times that you have a lot of files, but not everything. Have you tried to get everything? That's a fair question. The answer is yes. We have certainly tried to get everything. Since our investigation with the podcast has started, we have been working in lockstep with the family on records requests, and this has been a bit of a team effort. Just before we started the podcast, Carly, who is Dan's wife, sent off a robust FOIA request to the FBI. And we actually have a little bit of an interview with her in which she kind of explains her process in reaching out to the FBI.
So last summer, we very much assumed that there has to be more documents than what we have. And so we reached out to the FBI via their formal FOIA request. And we requested basically everything we could come up with, asking them what they had. And our thought behind that, again, was we have to be missing a piece of evidence. We'd really like the autopsy pictures. We'd like pictures of the body. We'd like to know the depths of the wounds. And we'd really like to see if they searched other rooms and what those looked like. And when we put the request in, I think it was about 2 weeks to a month. And then we got a letter back from the FBI FOIA department saying that they had located a little over 1,700 pages. And before they were able to release those files, it would be about 67 months. And if we would like to have a limited release of, I believe it was under 80 pages, then it might be only 6 months to wait. And we, at that time, just paused and said we wanted everything. We asked if we could know what we would be missing, like, or is it duplicative of what we already have, or how can we see the titles and make sure we're not missing something we don't have? And that it was not available. So currently we are in the 67-month wait.
67-month wait. Approximately 6 years. What do you make of a 6-year wait for documents?
When we found out it was going to be 6 years, it was really frustrating because the family's waited 25 years and we just don't really know where to go with it because there's not a lot we can do. So it was just very frustrating because we're just looking for documents on what happened in this situation, and to not be given them is just incredibly frustrating.
So as you hear here, ultimately the FBI came back and provided somewhere in the range of 5-year timeline for a thorough review of the case files. And it's worth mentioning that they mentioned that UCD Police Department has hundreds, if not thousands, of files. That's a quote. Hundreds, if not thousands of files related to the case. A really mind-blowing kind of thing to wrap our heads around when we start talking about these files and gaining access. So that happened kind of as we were coming on to do the podcast. But since then, we've also helped work in tandem with Carly and the Wieman family to send out a new California Public Records request, which is kind of the California equivalent of a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, to UCD Police Department. And UCD-PD responded saying that they would review and redact any appropriate materials. And ultimately, what the family received back after quite a bit of waiting was a single supplement report that was very heavily redacted. For those that have seen the recent news of like the Epstein files, this was something almost reminiscent in that, not in volume, but just in how there were multiple pages that were just fully redacted, fully black from top to bottom. And so inevitably that's a bit frustrating. And although we didn't receive more case files with this, like I think the family and also we were kind of hoping to see, what we were able to kind of learn in this most recent file is that there's a bit of an internal email chain that shows that the department continues to track inquiries and kind of monitors for any new information that might emerge, particularly in response to kind of this renewed interest in Andrew's case and also the family's efforts through the years. So these are all really interesting kind of learnings and findings as we've tracked this great effort of trying to get our hands and helping to get the family's hands on as many of these files as possible.
I mean, we may also want to talk about California DOJ. Not much to talk about there. The DOJ denied the family's request to release records, but what I notice is between UCDPD and California DOJ, both of these agencies are citing California government codes, and two codes in particular. One protects an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, so it's a privacy exemption, and then the second one, usually referenced, is a law enforcement investigation exemption, protecting ins and outs of law enforcement investigation. Yeah. But that also doesn't mean that there's nothing to make public. But at this point, with all of the family's efforts, their best approach going forward is to retain a lawyer and see what they can get released to them via a court order.
Which is, at the end of the day, ultimately something that they should be able to have. I hope that more files emerge, especially some of these files that we've been talking about all season, that we're eager to see and get our hands on, the tech files and, just anything else that kind of helps. So here's hoping. We've got one more here that is hot off the press, as they say, that just came in this week. And I don't even think Lisa's heard this one yet. So I'm going to play this last one here for us.
Hello, Love and Justice team. I was one of the last two people to see Andrew and the one who found him. I can help fill in the 60 hours from my perspective.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is wild. Some people might recall that just a few weeks ago on the podcast, we talked with Jeffrey Wiley, but he was not at UC Davis around the time of Andrew's death. So this, Bo, is really the first fraternity brother that we've heard from who was there when this all happened. And on top of that, the one who actually found Andrew, which is just extremely powerful in itself.
Yeah, I didn't even think this was going to be possible. We've been hoping for somebody who was there to reach out, and I just cannot wait to hear what he has to say. So I don't know what we're waiting for, but we should get back to him.
Yeah. Let's see what we can do to kick this off here. All right, Bo, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and chat with us, and welcome to the podcast. I want to start with a question that a lot of people might be curious to know as we dive in here, including myself. And that is, why did you feel compelled to reach out to the podcast?
I've asked myself that multiple times over the past month because I hadn't reached out until I did. And when I did, I still wondered why. I don't know if it's for the parents, if it's for Andrew, if it's for self-healing, if it's doing the right thing. I'm still not certain. I just felt compelled in hearing the first half of episode 1 to put down the phone and reach out right then and offer what I can.
Well, we very much appreciate you doing that. And I know you've got a lot of perspective here that I don't think we've really been able to get from truly anybody else. So I'm definitely looking forward to talking a bit about that.
Andrew moved in to the fraternity house his second year. I moved in third year. We both took roles in the house our third year. I took on the house manager. He was voted to be the treasurer. Just to put some light on what those roles actually meant to us as kids at the time was, if we had a role in the house, we got money off of our rent, for one, which really made our parents happy. And 2, we got points towards getting first pick on rooms in the house the next year.
Okay. So this is a question that's come up a lot. I know as you've been listening to episodes of the podcast, I think we talked before this recording that you've been kind of binging some of the episodes. So you've probably heard us chat already a little bit about kind of access and security to the fraternity house. There's been a lot of chatter in this case about keys and who had keys and who was able to get in and out of not just the house, but different rooms within the house. Were doors locking, that sort of thing. What is your kind of of take on access at Kappa Sig? Were doors mostly locked? Were they mostly unlocked?
Access to the whole facility was wide open at all times. I know as house manager, I should have had keys to every room in the whole house, and I had nothing. So every door coming from outside, inside, I don't remember a time that a door was locked. Never a locked door. A lot of doors would be wide open while people sleep. Actually, come to think about it, you'd get pranked if you left your door open. So for the most part, people would lock their doors at night.
There's obviously been conversations, and I think no college is singular in this kind of experience. There are going to be fraternities that have rivalries on any college campus. And as we've been kind of piecing together this case and looking at what's been going on at UC Davis, particularly around the time in the early 2000s, I think there's definitely questions and curiosities around what a rival fraternity to Kappa Sigma would have looked like at the time. To your recollection, was there a rivalry with Kappa Sigma, and what did that kind of look like at the time?
Tough to say. I mean, we were a group of just fun guys. We partied a lot. We had fun. Fights happen from time to time. When you mix a lot of young men and some alcohol, that tends to happen with other groups of the same. There was the Pikes, there was the Phi Delts, there was the Theta Chi. On a level, we were friends with many people in all of them. Rivalries, I don't feel like we had a mortal enemy. It comes down to it. There were moments where we got in fights with other fraternities, but it wasn't a thing that when we saw someone, it was like that was a rival. If that makes sense.
Over your time at UC Davis, did you see any points where things started escalating between different fraternities that made you go, oof, this is getting a little bit more heated than just your average college back and forth?
I know stuff was portrayed on the news about us and the kind of people we were, but we never internally had anything that was against some other fraternity or group of people. When it came down to any sort of disagreements, it was not about race, it wasn't about ethnicity, it was guys being guys.
Was there ever a time while you were at Davis where anyone in Kappa Sigma leadership ran into disciplinary action because of things that were going on campus?
Yeah, I feel like the presidents every single year ran into something with regards to parties or fights. I can't remember if our charter was pulled after. We weren't allowed to have parties at our house. And that's just things that happened at UC Davis. So we had parties and they got blown up, and all of a sudden we couldn't have any more of them.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about these last few weeks leading up to Andrew's death. In the weeks leading up, did Andrew's behavior to you seem to change in any visible way? Was he sleeping less, drinking more, loss of appetite, those things that we often hear about, right? Was there anything like this that kind of stood out to you at the time or later with hindsight that you remember from those last weeks that Andrew was around?
Yeah, like looking back on Andrew and how he was the weeks before. Again, it was coming right out of Christmas break, so we hadn't seen each other for probably 2 to 3 weeks. I have zero recollection of any time before that, leading up to it, that pertained to Andrew, anything specific. We did go to South Lake Tahoe together. That trip is almost out of my mind completely. I actually can't pinpoint a moment of that time of what we did, because we did 3 or 4 of those trips over the years. I do remember when we got home, but I don't remember anything other than we were all hungover, and because we drank a little too much on New Year's Eve, and we were licking our wounds, and that was about it, but nothing out of the norm.
So let's talk about New Year's Day, when you arrive back in Davis from Tahoe. Can you walk me through that day once you arrived back at the fraternity house?
So getting back from Tahoe, again, a big blur from that whole trip, just in general. Time has definitely done a toll with me when it comes to remembering things. So I don't remember exactly when we got back, but I imagine we got back afternoon. I do know that we went go get sandwiches at Togo's, which is a sandwich shop in Davis, in Andrew's car. And that's all I remember about that. I know that because of something that happened the next day when he wasn't picking up the phone or answering his door. We went outside to look at his car, and it was in the same spot, and there was a Togo's cup on top of it. And that told us, oh, he obviously hasn't left since we were there. I don't remember the day other than that evening. And again, evening to us was 12 at night. That's the normal night for any of us to be up in college. But I remember we hung out in a friend's room that was right next to Andrew's. And it was the three of us, and we were just watching episodes of Frasier and hanging out and just probably reminiscing about the weekend and really just killing time till it was time to go to bed. And that's really the memory that I have of that day. Sadly, I don't recollect a lot of the details of that day.
Okay, so everyone kind of goes to bed after what was a sloggy New Year's Day. January 2nd begins this 60-hour clock.
Well, we can go back to January 1st a little bit more. Going back to January 1st, so Andrew, he left and went to bed. I didn't notice anything different about it. It's late, going to bed. And I remember we were hanging out and about to go to bed, and I got up and I had to go to the bathroom. So I ran down the hall. I pounded on his door, pounded on the other friend's door, ran down there, went to the bathroom, came back. And when I got back, hopped in bed, and I remember, I don't know how much time later, whether it was half asleep, full asleep, whatever, I just remember popping up in my bed because I heard our door handle jiggle. It shocked me, but I vividly remembered it, got up, made sure the door was locked, it was, and then just assumed I was hearing things, and then just went back to bed. But that was just one eerie thing that I'll remember to this day that just kind of set my brain in motion after all this happened.
What do you make of that?
I mean, what I make of it is, once we found Andrew, I was 100% it was not suicide. It was someone had it out for someone or him, or I don't even know if it, in my mind, if it was definitely him. It could have been anyone. I heard the door handle jiggle. Who knows what it could have been, but it gave me that little bit of push to one direction to say, this doesn't make sense.
So you wake up on January 2nd. What do you recall of this day?
January 2nd, I'm pretty sure we woke up late morning and started making plans for the day. What are we going to do? There's no school tomorrow. There's only a couple of us here. I know that I knocked on Andrew's door in the morning to try to get his attention and figure out what we were going to do for the day. I can't really remember the sequence of like when things happened, but I know at one point we went outside because he wasn't picking up the phone and he wasn't answering his door, and we saw his car was there. That's when we saw the Togo's cup, and well, he hasn't gone anywhere. I remember calling him from my landline down in my room downstairs to be like, hey, we're going to do this. And this is what like hit me like way later is I wonder what the phone records were that they had of him. If they had voicemails, that were listened to, or if they were just unread, or if they were deleted, because we called him multiple times that day trying to find out where he was because we couldn't figure it out. I remember one point going into my room and saying, hey, we're going to go do something. Hey, man, I'm beginning to think you're dead. Give me a call back. What's going on? And I'm getting chills right now just thinking about that. It's like this sixth sense just started creeping in that something's not right. And we're dealing with a couple 20-year-olds not really knowing how to handle this. Nothing ever has gone bad in our life when it comes down to something like this. So we're like, there's got to be a reason for it. Let's not panic. There's got to be a reason. But that's what I remember from that day. I don't remember the evening. I do know a couple other of the friends came home and were there, and we definitely talked about, hey, haven't seen Andrew all day. No one knows where he is. And that's just kind of when that worry really, really set in.
And so as you go to bed the night of the 2nd, and as we now get into January 3rd, the clock still, unbeknownst to anyone at the time, still ticking, that Andrew hasn't been seen. What does January 3rd look like?
I'm not sure if property management was even open yet because school was out of session. So I don't know if we thought about going to get the keys at one point. I don't think calling the police even registered to us. I don't know why. But yeah, so woke up again, gave the knocks on the door, called again, nothing. And I remember going over to the Pineapple House, it was an Asian fraternity right next to us in the same complex, but just the house right next to us. And I'd hung out with some of them a couple times, so I felt friendly enough to go knock on the door and ask for a ladder. I was like, he's in the backyard. You can put a ladder right up to his room. And I was like, maybe the window's open or I can look in. But again, I'm feeling something real here at this point because I'm sensing what's going on. And I get the ladder, I put it up there, and I climb the ladder. And of course, the blinds are shut and windows locked, and there's nothing I can see inside of it. Just another fail, and assuming I'm not sure what to do at that point. And again, that's kind of what I remember from that day. There's some poignant moments in each day, but I really don't have a major timeline of each.
Yeah. I imagine there might be some people listening to this when the episode airs that are saying, Bo's talking about his spider senses tingling on January 2nd. They're tingling even more on January 3rd. Why not act on those senses more than just looking through his window from the outside on a ladder?
Yeah, why I didn't do it, I don't have an answer for that. You look back and you say, why didn't I? I don't know. I'm the ever optimist. Maybe I just thought he'd just show up. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
So you go to bed on the 3rd. The 4th, this is the first day of school after the holiday break.
Yep.
Walk me through this.
Andrew and I had the first class together. It was Nutrition 10 and Chem 194. Everyone at Davis knows if you miss the first day of Nutrition 10, you're dropped from the class. Andrew doesn't miss classes. I went early to his room. I said, Andrew, I'm going to school. Knocked on his door again. I'll see you there. And I got there early, and I stood on the top steps and watched everyone walk in the door. And then I stood in the back and looked around, scanned. He wasn't there. And I went straight to my next class where I knew 3 of my buddies were going to be. It was a poli-sci class. And I said, Andrew wasn't there. We got to go get the keys from property management and go check. We walked across campus, went to property management, got the keys, and walked back into the fraternity house and walked up the stairs. And it's this feeling of like, this can't be true. And I walked up and I'm like, guys, I'm going into Andrew's room. And I got the keys and I opened it up and I immediately had a sigh of relief. And I think it was this wanting to not see him in there. And then I took one step and I knew there was something in the bed. And I slowly walked into the foot of the bed and I don't remember really anything. I have a vision of him. I know I didn't smell a thing. I didn't hear a thing. Everything was gray around me. My senses just went blank. And I remember leaving the room and running down the hall and just saying, he's in there, he's in there. I knew he was dead the moment I saw him, but I couldn't say the words. And one of our friends called the police and another one went in to just check his pulse to make sure. The bravest move I've ever seen, Jesus. And from there, the nightmare began. It's hard to remember any of it. And what I do remember is the bedspread tucked over him and tucked in. To what degree, I can't recall, but he was under a blanket of some sort. I got out of there pretty quickly after. I was told I walked on glass. I was told that there was a smell. I was told there was blood everywhere. It was just straight shock. And we all gathered in our chapter rooms, and one by one, people would come home from school and we'd have to break the news. And we had a friend that was out of town that lived with him the year before and had to call and break the news. And it was just one by one breaking hearts. And it was undescribable. And I wish I had more memory of some of these things, but it's a blur. From that moment, it's just a blur. A lot of being in shock and not understanding.
One of the big pieces of evidence that has been talked a lot about, we've talked about it on the podcast already, is a phrase that was carved into Andrew's kind of bed frame. I'm curious if that phrasing resonates with you, or if you remember seeing that carving prior to Andrew's death.
Yeah, that phrasing on his bed, I never saw it, never heard of, and don't even remember it. I remember hearing it in the first episode and thinking, wow, is that new? And then finding out it's not new. But yeah, I have no recollection of that at all.
I know that from what we've been able to see and read, it looks like the authorities never actually shut down the fraternity house. They closed and obviously sectioned off Andrew's dorm room, but they never formally closed down the house.
No.
Did you find that as unusual or strange to you, or at the time were you just in this blurry haze and it was just whatever?
Yeah, when it came to authorities leaving the fraternity house open, door was locked and there was some tape, I believe, around the door. I could not believe they let us stay in that house. It blew my mind that we were allowed to go back in there. Personally, I never went back in there for a long time. I would stay at other people's houses. I was very scared. I was on the side of Andrew did not do this, and I was terrified. So I stayed at friends' houses off campus. But yes, I couldn't believe they let people go right back in.
There was also talk about how some fraternity brothers were questioned, some were not questioned, nobody was separated, which is kind of typical in an investigation like this. Do you make anything of those parts of the aftermath as well?
I thought it was odd. I wasn't questioned for a few days. I gave some basic information right away. And there was no trying to get more information. It seemed very loose and felt almost like they weren't getting as much as they could get out of us somehow. There's got to be more here. Come back, ask more questions. I don't know what your job is, but it felt like there should be more. You sort of trust at that age, law enforcement has it under control. And I definitely had feelings of this doesn't feel right. It feels like there should be, I didn't even know what they're supposed to do, but it didn't feel right.
What made it not feel right?
It's possible they did the best they could and working with the abilities they had, and me not really knowing what the protocol is for an investigation like this. I just thought they'd talk to us more or just talk to everyone. I don't know if they talk to everyone, and I don't want to say things that I don't mean right now. So I don't have a full recollection of everything, but it just felt like there could have been more done with that investigation.
We've heard a lot of rumors, and we've received a few phone calls to our hotline that Kappa Sigma in the early 2000s, around this time that Andrew died, had involvement of sorts with drugs. Mm-hmm. And there's people that talk about how there was a possible connection between drug money and Andrew and the fact that he was the fraternity treasurer. And I'm curious what you make of all of that.
First I ever heard of that was in a previous podcast episode, and it shocked me, absolutely shocked me. But that was a theory that never crossed my mind. I'm not going to say no one was doing anything other than drinking alcohol and probably some marijuana. But from my vantage point, I knew nothing about any hardcore drugs or anything in that regard. That was, when I heard that first, it was left field for me.
Were there hazing rituals in Kappa Sigma where you guys were writing suicide notes? Is that something that happened in your fraternity?
That never happened. Absolutely never happened. Nothing of that nature at all.
What do you think happened to Andrew Wieman?
What do I think happened to Andrew? It's changed many times over the years. I've gotten to the point where I've accepted whatever happens. I just miss Andrew. I love Andrew. It's hard to say, man. It's like I can go so many ways. But it's also hard to say what's going on in a kid's head and what's behind the smile. And I know for me, after this whole experience, my 20s were hell. I couldn't get out of partying. I drank and I couldn't get out of it, and I spiraled. And I remember having thoughts of suicide, and they were fleeting. It was like, oh, where did that come from? That's scary. I can sympathize in a way of like, we don't know what's going on behind the face. If he did, for me, it's okay. I love him. I don't want to put a name on what I think it would be. Personally, I would love to know, but I don't need to know. I know Andrew. I knew Andrew. I loved Andrew. I remember him for the things I want to remember him for. either way, it just sucks. And he was going through something shitty in both situations.
On the next episode of Love and Justice. After months of reviewing the evidence, Scott Roeder returns with his determination. Love and Justice is an official production of Magic Lamp Productions and is primarily recorded in California. This episode was executive produced and hosted by me, Kyle Olson. Supervising producer, Alexa Lopez. Producer, Lisa Visione. Edited by Cody Crabb. Special thanks to Amanda Crabb, Bob Graytrix, Brendan Allen McClanahan, Carlos Vera, Ethan Rosenberg, Haley Gabby, Mick Alpert, PJ McCabe, Richard Levichin Jr., Roxanne De Palma, and Stephen Paul. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and rate it 5 stars. Every single review greatly helps our exposure and helps us share Andrew's story with a larger audience. So please rate this podcast and share it with your friends today. If you have a tip, question, or thought, please call our hotline at 209-764-5683. That's 209-764-LOVE. Until next time, thanks for listening. This episode covered difficult material. If it brought up anything for you, please reach out for support. In the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, available 24/7 for free and confidential help. You can also chat with someone at 988lifeline.org.